Hi, my name is Nina. I'm a ceramic artist and this is my first long video about ceramics. My very first clay piece was this house, and then I decided to go further and got into ceramics. I work with hand building techniques. I really love this particular way of working where the shape is born gradually, right in your hands, and something alive and natural remains in each piece. Today, I want to show you the process of making small cups for a tea ceremony. Using them as an example, we'll talk about working with a very thin slab of clay, just 3 millimeters. In teacups, nuances are important, especially the thickness and shape of the walls. The shape of these cups allows the tea to cool down properly. This is important if we want to taste, smell, and get the benefits of the tea. And the wall thickness and lack of a handle help us determine the temperature of the tea. So today, we'll make exactly this kind of cup, and I'll show you all the steps, from rolling out a thin slab to glazing. Let's head to the studio. Now, let's prepare the tools. With the right, well-chosen tools, everything is much easier and more fun. To make this cup, I'll need a rolling pin, 3 millimeter guide strips, a rib, a wooden modeling tool, a silicone spatula, a sharp knife, a wooden knife, a scoring tool, and a circle cutter. For this cup, I'm using high fire clay with grog. Most of the time, I work with grogged clays, sometimes with a finer grain, sometimes with a coarser one. Grog is already fired and crushed clay that is added to the clay body. It gives the clay structure, makes it more stable, and in my opinion, more predictable during drying and firing. I hand build without a pottery wheel. I can afford to use clay even with quite noticeable grog. I also like how the grog looks in the finished piece. I don't usually wedge clay from a new package. If it's high quality, fresh clay for hand building, I don't see the need. I wedge clay if I'm reusing it, for example, from scraps or recycling. I take the piece of clay I need and first shape it with my hands to roughly match the future template. This leaves fewer scraps and the slab rolls out more evenly. For this cup, I'm rolling out a slab 3 millimeters thick. With such a thin slab, you need to work carefully and take your time. It deforms easily, can stretch, warp, or lose its shape. So, at different stages, I let the clay dry slightly to a state where it already holds its shape but still bonds well. After rolling, I smooth the surface with a soft silicone spatula. I really like this particular spatula. It's soft enough, doesn't scratch the clay, and is the right size for most of my tasks. Now I place the template, first trace the shape along the outline, and then cut the slab. The side edges that will be joined together later, I cut at a 45-degree angle. One side sloping outward, the other sloping inward. This way, when joining, the edges match up better, and the seam is neater. Separately, I refine the top edge, the future rim of the cup that the lips will touch. I gently smooth it with a spatula to make the edge visually and tactually thinner. I don't sponge this edge with water because I'm working with grog clay. If you start actively sponging the surface, you can bring up the grog and the edge won't be smooth, but rather rougher. Now I carefully lift the cut slab and start rolling it into a cylinder shape. Since our cup is cylindrical and slightly flared, it's important to position the slab with the correct side facing your working hand right away. This seems like a small thing, but it actually really affects how easy it is to join. I place the piece with the narrow side up where the bottom will be. This way I can see the seam better and join the edges more neatly. Next, I make score marks on the joints and apply thick slip. I prefer thick slip because the parts slide around less when joining. First, I join the edges with my fingers and then gently smooth the seam with a wooden modeling tool. To seal the seam from the inside, I lay the cylinder on its side, definitely on fabric, so the slab doesn't stick to the table and deform. I think this is a very convenient method, though I don't see it shown very often. The inner seam turns out even and smooth, and with this technique, I don't need an extra coil of clay for reinforcement. After that, I place the piece on the banding wheel and adjust the shape a bit. Now let's prepare the bottom. I form a small ball of clay, roll it into a slab of the same thickness, 3 millimeters, and cut out a circle. I usually cut the bottom with almost no excess, very close to the required size. For this shape, that's important. Our cup is slightly trapezoidal, so I also bevel the edge of the bottom at a slight angle. This makes the joint look more natural, and the bottom of the cup becomes a continuation of the wall rather than a separate attached piece. I score the edges again and apply slip. I don't add an extra coil here either. If the bottom fits the size exactly and the slip is thick enough, this joint is more than enough. Now, I attach the cylinder to the bottom. After joining them, I gently tap the cup on the table. This helps compress the seam, remove excess air, and fit the parts tighter together. The slip squeezes out a bit on the inside, and I use it to shape a neat inner edge with my finger. Then I flip the cup onto the bending wheel and gently level the shape and smooth the seam once more. I smooth the surface with a rib and leave the piece to dry slightly. While the cup is resting, we can prepare the foot. For the foot, I take a small piece of clay again, form a ball, and roll out a slab 3 millimeters thick. First, I cut the outer contour of the future foot. I used to cut both the outer and inner circles right away to get a thin ring, but such a ring deforms very easily. It's flexible, soft, and hard to transfer and attach evenly. After I started using a compass cutter for ceramics, the process became much easier and neater. Now, I first attach a solid circle and cut out the inner part only after it's secured on the cup. I score along the edge of the contour, apply slip, and attach the piece to the bottom. Then, I gently tap the future foot and touch up the seam with my finger, just like we did before. After that, I let the piece dry a bit again. Then I set the radius of the compass. It should match the part that needs to be cut out to turn the solid circle into a neat ring foot. This tool takes practice. It's important to control the pressure. You only need to cut through the top 3 millimeter layer of clay and not damage the bottom of the cup itself. To keep the center from shifting, I rotate the banding wheel, not the compass. This way, the line is evener and my hand is steadier. Once the circle is scored, I try to gently lift the cut center part with a knife. If it doesn't lift, it means the slab isn't cut all the way through. Then, I carefully cut it with a knife, closely controlling the depth. After removing the excess part, I add a little slip if needed and smooth the inner corner of the foot with my finger. This way, the foot turns out neat, even, and looks like a natural continuation of the shape. Now the cup needs to be set to dry. When I move the piece to the shelf, I always check and level the rim of the cup once more. On thin clay, it easily changes shape even from a light touch. First, I dry the cup on one side, check the shape in about an hour, make sure nothing has deformed, and then flip it to the other side. Once the piece is completely dry, it can go into the kiln for the bisque firing. After the bisque firing, we take the piece out of the kiln and prepare it for glazing. Before that, I always sand the piece, removing any excess roughness, blow off the dust, and wipe it with a sponge. I rarely glaze my pieces by simple dipping because my designs are usually multi-step. I use different techniques, working with slips and glazes. I often combine them, wiping back, layering, combining with texture. I like it when the surface remains alive, complex, with different areas, matte here, glossy there, and bare clay in some places. But for tableware, there's an important practical point. Even high-fire clay still absorbs moisture to some extent after firing, so I always glaze the inside of the cups. This makes them more practical and convenient to use. After glazing, we send the piece for the final firing. In my case, it's 1220 degrees. And here, after the final firing, we take the finished cups out of the kiln. Before firing, there's always an element of anticipation. You roughly understand what should happen, but the final result is still only revealed after the kiln. Now you can see the true color of the clay, glazes, and textures. I like that in such small cups, several things come together at once. A simple shape, a thin wall, the tactility of grogged clay, and practicality for a tea ceremony. They are pleasant to hold. It's easy to feel the temperature of the tea through them, and the flared shape helps the aroma unfold faster. If you love tea ceremonies or just want to make a small tactile cup for your favorite drink, definitely try this shape. If you found this interesting, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and write in the comments what the next video should be about. I plan to show more processes, techniques, and nuances of hand building in the future. Thank you for being with me. See you in the next video.